and welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss mystical works of literature and how they relate to recovery. We hope you enjoy today's podcast episode.
Hello, this is Buddy C. Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. It's really more the Tao of our misunderstanding rather than our understanding. Today I have Keary D with me from Dallas, Texas. No, are you Fort Worth or Dallas?
I'm actually in a northern community of Dallas called Salina now.
See, people are sensitive about that. I get corrected every time.
Yeah, definitely not from Fort Worth.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Of course, one of the best steaks I ever had was in Fort Worth at the stockyard. So
yeah.
I used to stop through there every time I was driving through and got a steak.
Yes, yeah. Two cities that are so different. It's crazy how different they are.
First of all, if you're new to the podcast, just visit buddyc.org. There's a lot of resources there. Maybe a benefit to you. So take a look at those, see what's helpful. Focus on the things that help and the things that aren't of interest to you. Just lay those aside. That's the way we learn to do in recovery, do the things that work for us. That's where we start. And Keary, how did we meet? Was it through the podcast? It was through the podcast, right?
Yeah, it was. I think I knew you a lot sooner than you knew me.
Okay. Tell us a little bit of the history, how you got here.
Yeah, I like to say the way was my way to recovery. So finding the Tao and studying it was my pathway eventually to get to recovery, which sounds like that might be opposite from some people. They got recovery first and then found the Tao.
Yeah, I remember when we first met, you didn't think you were an alcoholic, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think what is it if you're questioning it? If you ask the question, am I alcoholic? You probably are, right? So I was already asking the question and knew I had some issues, but I didn't think I was an alcoholic yet. In my mind, an alcoholic was the bum underneath the bridge without a job, and that wasn't me.
Yeah, you're quite the opposite. You'd been successful and you hadn't had all those yets.
None of the yets. It's funny because I was just really tired of waking up feeling like crap every morning and not getting any sleep at night. But I couldn't see how my life had become unmanageable and how much energy it was taking to hold that together. And I was really looking for a spiritual answer for that. But until I started recovery, it wasn't going to happen. And that was my pathway to learn the Tao. And it really helped me, for the most part, with just a higher power, understanding that I don't need to understand my higher power really at the end of the day. And then once I could get past that, I was with step 2 and 3, I'm like, hey, I'm good. We don't even talk about it. I got my higher power. Let's go. And we can move on. So
how do you see your life as unmanageable when, for most people would look at your life and say, oh, Keary's life is very manageable. Look at, he's been successful. He has all the things. He's a professional guy with a good job, all those things. How do you see your life unmanageable at the moment? Is there?
Yeah, that's funny. It was really hard to see that as I was working the steps with my sponsor. I'm like, yeah, I get that. I didn't even understand the allergies until we started working together, buddy. I'd never even heard that before, which is crazy, right? So from a scientific point of view, the allergy made total sense. When I start, I can't stop. And that part made sense, but I was like, I just don't get this unmanageable part. I haven't had any of those yet. I hadn't hit proverbial rock bottom yet or anything. And so when I hit the, my dog's gonna start barking now, sorry.
Okay.
When I hadn't hit rock bottom and I couldn't see where my life had become unmanageable. And so I think really I was so selfish, so self-centered. That's I'm trying to figure out now is that I was holding it all together. And that was exhausting. It was taking so much energy to hold that facade up that life is good. And I think I had everybody fooled. I don't think anybody really thought I was an alcoholic, those people close to me. Maybe you drank too much every now and then, but hey, that was fun. We had a good time. And even my mom would tell me, like, of all my children, you just seem to have it all together. You're just like the happiest of all of us. And I'm like, and I'm so selfish and self-centered. I'm like, that's just like hitting my ego so hard. Yes, I am. Like, that's just feeding it. But in truth, I don't think I was. And because I don't know what to say, like a first world problem, right? But like what got me to see it is I was talking about how I like to play tennis. And I was telling my sponsor like different times when maybe life was unmanageable or something. And so I wrote the story about how I joined this tennis club and we play at 7:00 every Monday night. And I was always secretly hoping it would get canceled because I wanted to go home and drink. That was my beer drinking time. But so then I'd go and then I'd hope to beat the guy quickly so I could get home and drink quickly. And then it always ended up like I was in this just competitive match. I would take 2.5, 3 hours. I'd get home at later, like 10:00, 10:30, which is 11:30 your time. And I would still drink, but I'd be like, damn it, I'm going to wake up with a headache tomorrow. And that's manageable. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so exhausting. And here's the worst case is I'd always lose. So I'm sitting here wondering, like, why am I always losing at tennis? I think I'm better than these people. I should be beating them. And there was just a really big lesson there about unmanageability, about how much energy I was using to not really to enjoy the moment and be successful. And that's when it hit me. I was like, oh yeah, that was a lot of energy. And I can see that in a lot of things I do, just trying to control things and really not dealing well with uncertainty. And then all these things in my mind, I had built up the way I do things. I started to see where, and just even more recently, where like the way I set it up in my mind that I'm not sure the right word, like justifying it. How I was justifying it was kind of showing the signs of that unmanageability and how I was trying to control everything. Like, so let me think of an example. I don't have a lot of close friends, but usually my go-to is like when things get difficult, it's just like I just bail, right? I just wish that person would go away. I wish that employee would leave. Like that's the easy, softer way, right? And so in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I just have a lot of very close personal friends, but I'm not out there with a lot of different people. And so just that's where that unmanageability, you start seeing it. You're like, all right, that was just me like trying to justify a character defect somehow. Anyways, I don't even know where we're going with that, buddy. Sorry.
I'm just interested in a high level alcoholic, how he sees unmanageability in his life. It's easy to see unmanageability when you're losing everything. You lost your wife and jobs and got jail coming, all those things. That's easy to see the unmanageability.
Yeah.
But in your day-to-day life, have you been able to see the unmanageability that from the outside appears that you're managing quite well?
Yeah. Well, yeah, here's the weird thing. And I think this is, I have to try to remember that, right? I didn't hit my rock bottom. I saw rock bottom, and what it looked like, and it scared me enough that I needed to do something about it. But I need to remember that, right? Because I don't have that there. And so I think I wanted to learn more about the Tao. And there were really only 2 podcasts talking about it that I could find. And yours was one of them. And I loved it because you guys were talking through each of the verses. But intermixed with that, I found A Course in Miracles. So I started attending one of those. I started getting that message. And then you started talking about different like podcasts and things. and I started listening to stories. And I think you're an alcoholic if you're identifying with really horrible stories that other people are doing. You're like, I can see that happen to me. And you're laughing, or you're like, man, that's horrible. But then you see the recovery. And I don't know when it happened, but at some point I saw, I don't even know if this is true or not, but this is the way I like to think of it. Like, I saw like this black hole of where my life was going. And then when when I decided it was time to get out, I couldn't get out of it. Like, I couldn't stop on my own. And I saw what the end result was going to be. For some reason, I got this God moment where somebody showed me what your life was going to be like if you kept going down that path. And I think that was the greatest blessing of all. Like, you know, I got this look at my rock bottom before I hit rock bottom. And it was not acceptable to me.
In AA, we have that opportunity to hear another person's pain, and it can help us not to have to go there, exactly like you were talking about.
Yeah. And I guess I still didn't think I was an alcoholic, though, buddy. But here's the path, right? The way. So then I show up in your fourth dimensioners meeting. And then you take me under your wing in that, and then we talk a little bit, and I think I just love the fact that I didn't know if I was an alcoholic or not, and I think you
weren't going to meetings. You wouldn't go to an AA meeting. You thought that was not something you needed.
I know. I didn't know that at the time, and maybe I couldn't even hear that at the time. But you were like, let's talk. We'll meet once a week, and we'll do this, and then got me into the program, and this one time we were in a meeting, they're talking about principles before personality, and I think that was I could talk about you, buddy, a little bit. So this is about you so it's the truth, so it's okay. It's not bragging on you, but like you kept saying from day one, you need to find someone in your area that's in person and go to an in-person meeting. And so I did that, and then I finally found someone that I identified with, and then you transferred the torch. You said, here, you put, and I think you kept me on life support until I could get to that point where I could do the work thoroughly, and that was awesome. That's hard to do because you could see where self, and like me, I want to be the person that saved that person or helped that person. And you knew what the right path was in the right way. And now I look back at that with just pure gratitude also. I see a lot more gratitude in things, than I ever did before.
And also with that, I learned from experience, and I've sponsored a number of different guys. So I know that if they're meant to be here, I just feed them the Kool-Aid in small portions.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, you got to carry. How many meetings a week do you go to now?
I go to about 3 a week.
Oh, my God. And you wouldn't even go to one before. You got a sponsor. You're working the steps. You're doing you're doing it. So it's amazing when I see that.
It wasn't without a fight. I fought my sponsor all the way. Like I still didn't have the willingness. He was telling me that you need to do 3 meetings a week. I can't do 3 meetings a week. I need you to read the big book. I'm like, I don't have time to read the big book. I fought everything, but I did everything though. Like I would fight him, and then later on I'm like, I'm keeping you sober. You're like, I'm really working you hard, sponsor, so you'll stay sober. But yeah, at the end of the day, I did the work, and it's paying off slowly, but paying off.
You sponsees yet?
No, I'm still working on step 9.
Okay.
So I don't think I'm quite ready yet, but I've been doing like service work. So I've been going to, there's a detox center here where they have people that we go talk to them about AA a little bit, just tell our story. So I try to do a little, I've chaired some meetings, help pick up supplies and that kind of stuff wherever I can to be of service.
So what was your opinion of a higher power before you started this? Why were you looking for a Tao podcast in the first place?
I don't even know. I was showing you my books, like my history of my books.
Right.
And somehow I stumbled. I can't remember if I stumbled on I got them right here, so I'm looking on this way. But
yeah, just go through the books you went through. We were going to do that later, but do it. Why don't you go ahead and do it now, being you got them out?
So I think what I did is this book was at my house. It was Tao Te Ching, the Guy Fu Feng and Jane English edition or translation. And I think I read it and I didn't really even understand it. It has a little bit of translation in there, but it was just the pure words of it. And I just remember as I was reading it, and I still love that translation the best because I think the words are just beautiful the way they translate it. It's almost like poetry. And I didn't really understand it too much, but I could see a deeper meaning in here. And that really, I don't know why it captured me, but it captured me. And so I wanted to find out more. And I remember my brother-in-law saw me reading it, and he goes, "Oh, you should read The Art of War. That's much better. You'll get more out of it." I don't know who wrote The Art of War, but that's another text. But so I read the whole thing, and then I wanted to learn more. Somehow I got on to Benjamin Hoff and read the Tao of Pu and the Tay of Piglet, and really both of those really spoke to me too. And so I was getting all these lessons in Tao, but I still wanted more because I'm an alcoholic, so my life's not getting any better, but I'm getting lots of information. So I went online looking and I stumbled onto this guy, which I don't see his work too much, Stefan Stinud. So I got his book and read it, and he has a lot more translations, a lot more background for what the Tao was trying to say. And then after that, I stumbled on to Wayne Dyer's book, which that was like,
that one got you. Yeah. Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. We've got that one on buddyc.org. If you look, resources bookstore, that one's there.
Yeah. And then, but growing up, I didn't really connect the higher power, but you can see the underlying tones of it. So like the way, to me, like the words are synonymous: God, the way, oneness. To me, there's just different ways of saying the same thing. And so you'd ask me like my idea of a higher power. Like I remember I got my first Bible when I was like in first grade or second grade, and I read it, and it said Moses was like 500 years old or something like that. I'm like, that's not what? Like, I don't get this stuff. But it just like just my entire life, like I would try to be it because I thought this is the way. I try to be a good Christian and follow
a Protestant denomination.
Yeah. My parents were Lutheran, but we never went to church really. We tried it, and that's where I got my Bible, and then we never really went back. And but so my whole life was just spent just not understanding it. Every time I hear it, it's like this doesn't make sense. That doesn't add up. And the one thing about the Tao that I think I liked looking backwards was that it was just somebody without adding any rules or judgment. It was just someone trying to explain it to you, like describing it to you.
Yes.
And I was thinking about someone, it's not tasting the strawberry. You always say that. But it was someone just trying to describe to you what the taste is. But they're not adding a bunch of rules. They're not saying you have to follow 10 rules to enjoy the strawberry completely. And
Oh yeah, that's good. I hadn't thought about that. You're right, Keary. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like after I went through all this, I went back and well, that's just their way of trying to describe it, right? Doesn't mean it's wrong or right. So like it gave me peace with everybody's way of trying to find God. And so looking backwards, I'm like, oh, okay. They're using allegories and stories and all kinds of things to try to explain the same thing, the same power. For me, just someone just trying to describe it and means a lot more. And then I can use that to make up what I think that is, I guess, let alone someone trying to tell me, in order to get the moonlight, you have to, they might describe it, but then again, add some of those rules to around in order to really enjoy the moonlight. You got to follow these 10 commandments or something. That's where I'm like, wait, I don't understand it. But then those 10 commandments might be other things that are relatable to how maybe Lao Tzu describes the way, right? Like they're just doing it in a different way. And just.
But the way is a way of virtue, TE being virtue. So this is a way that we learn to walk in virtue. I mean, if you look at 79, I think, which is the resentment. That's the resentment verse in the Tao Te Ching. The Tao does not take sides, but it's always on the side of the one who forgives.
Yeah.
See, that is the 10 Commandments wrapped up, just packaged a different way.
Yeah, definitely. And even that, people dispute all what that means. So when you start adding different layers and different rules, some people will take it different ways. So anyway.
That's why in AA, it's great that we just focus on our experience, not the rules or what we should believe. And that's what's great about it. It gives people freedom to find their way. You're never told what God is or what a higher power, or even if you don't even have to believe in a higher power. My personal opinion is you don't have to believe in anything, but you do have to take action. If you start helping and start loving other people, your life changes. I don't know how or why it works, but it does.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing I figured out too is the way is great. It's like the theory though, right? It's so I was telling somebody that I love to watch golf videos. I play golf now instead of tennis. I chose the more expensive sport. And I'm notorious for watching a YouTube video on how to hit the perfect chip. And then think I could just watch that video, go out and just play golf and chip like that, right? It's usually a disaster, like a worst round ever. Like I don't practice it. And I think with the Tao, it was kind of like that YouTube video in a way, right? Much more meaningful probably. But what AA gave me, I'm thinking is like a workbook on how to practice those things in your everyday life. So they move right from one to the other. So once I'd gone through the 81 verses and got a higher conception of what my higher power is, I still wasn't able to do anything about it until I could start practicing it and going through the steps. I really feel like each time I do it, like there's just different layers and things I'm learning about myself, and just like a window, just slowly cleaning and becoming more transparent to how to live the Tao instead of just know the Tao. If you could know it, right?
Yeah. Huh. That's good. That's good. So before you came into recovery, you had like the classic Zeus God idea of the gray-haired guy in the sky, or did you throw all that out before you came into?
I think like most things, probably it didn't make any sense to me, and it didn't line up, and I said, I'm just not going to deal with that.
Yeah, okay.
And just, maybe there is something. Funny, the only time I would pray is when I was taking an airplane. I had like a certain prayer, like to get, I don't even know why. I'm like, you don't even really, but now I'm going to believe in God because I'm going on a jet airplane. I want to get there safe. How selfish is that?
Yes.
But it works every time, so I kept doing it.
It'll work until it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's like the Indian rain dance works every time if you pray long enough.
yeah. Eventually you'll get some rain.
It's going to rain eventually. Yes. Don't give up.
So I needed again on my way, right? To verse 1 spells it all out for me. The minute try to describe the power of God or the way, you limit the power.
Let's read that one. You talking about the first one?
Yeah, the first verse.
Let's read that. What you got? You have a translation you prefer?
Oh, I love the Tao Te Ching.
Okay.
Sounds artsy.
Did you know that Alan Watts married them? He did their wedding.
No, I haven't really explored Alan Watts too much. I've seen his name a lot in relation to the Tao, but honestly, I haven't really explored any of his things.
He's got a lot of good water analogies. Amazingly, the Zen people that I know don't have much respect for him. They think he was kind of fast food Zen. And that he really didn't practice, like he meditated some, and he had some insight because he wrote some really great things. But it's my understanding, I think he died an alcoholic. There was a lot of things there some things that didn't line up and some things that did. So that's what I understand, that he was partying a lot still in his late 50s, I think, when he passed.
Yeah, but maybe that was my story right there. If I didn't stop, I would know a lot about Taoism and be like an expert in it and still dying of alcoholism.
He put out, a lot of people came to Zen and Tao from reading his books. I've got one of his books right now, so he had some good stuff.
Yeah, I've always seen it, and I've heard his name a lot around it, but honestly, I just never clicked on that button when it has his name there for some reason. I was amazed the first time I heard negativity with him. I was like, what are you talking about? And then the more I was around, the more I realized what they were talking about. Yeah.
Anyway, check him out. He might speak to you. I know other people he speaks very well to, that they really enjoy his stuff.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So this is chapter 1 or verse 1. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The nameless is the beginning of heaven and earth. The named is the mother of 10,000 things. Ever desireless, one can see the mystery. Ever desiring, one sees the manifestations. These two spring from the same source, but differ in name. This appears as darkness. Darkness within darkness, the gateway to all mystery. Which honestly, like, I understand the first part more, and that's where my conception of God is, right? Like the nameless, like the minute I try to define it, I can't, it's impossible. And it's funny, like I learned quickly, like trying to explain that to people, and they're like, what are you talking about? So then you're like, okay, maybe I got something there, right? If you can't explain it, then, then it's something that you don't need to learn it. You don't need to explain it. Maybe you don't need to understand it. But in all practicality, that's my higher power. It's unexplainable. It's just huge. It's oneness. It's everything. It's the same feeling I get when I look at the universe and the stars at night, right? It's just, wow, this is amazing. I have no idea what's going on there. But when I pray at night, I pray to some bearded white guy with a Zeus, because that my mind can get around, right? So so it's like my gateway to my higher power. And then you can go back to our earlier discussion about religion and church, like probably what people had to do. They had to put some of that stuff in there to make it more relatable, understandable.
Sure. And everybody has their own God language. So everyone can choose that. And the amazing thing about meetings, I've mentioned this before, we never discuss what our higher power is. Never, ever is that a meeting topic, or it shouldn't be. I was taught that you don't discuss it, but you have to know it's not you or not entirely you. Maybe a better way to say that. Maybe we're all drops out of the ocean of love, which is the Bhakti way of looking at that. Now, who knows? All I know is when I help you, I feel better, and I'm going to leave it right there. And so if God is love, that's as far as I need to take it. I don't need to understand it or have some philosophical way of explaining it. Love is enough for me.
I think
that's good. Thank you.
One of the first things you told me, buddy, I think after meeting me and working with me for a little bit, you're like, you need to go read Acceptance is the Answer.
Yes.
Which has a lot of Taoist undertones in it. And so I was like, why does he tell me to read this? The more I read, now I go back and read it all the time because it's got some of my favorite pieces in there.
That's a story in the big book. I'll give you guys the page.
I have.
Starts on 407 in the 4th edition.
Oh, yeah, I've got 417. I got it even bookmarked.
Yes. When you get 416 to 420 is the section that's quoted all the time on acceptance. There's lots of acceptance quotes there. All acceptance does, Keary, is get us to the moment, accepting the moment for what it is. It's more of that here and now stuff. Could it be that God is just this present moment in all things right now? I don't know.
Yeah. And that's what the line here, it says nothing, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. And so in order to see that, you have to be in the moment. You can't be looking backwards at it, thinking about how crappy that was, or thinking ahead what the moment's going to be like.
How I can change it.
Yeah, I still struggle with it. Yeah, I still struggle with it a lot. But I've noticed, and again, this is just maybe more AA talk, less Tao, so sorry.
No, it's okay. It all blends together because it's all just different sides of this viewing the same piece of art, you know?
I'm able to stop myself a lot more when things are happening that I don't like. Sometimes I can't stop it, but I know I'm doing it. But lots of, like now I can see it like, man, I'm just not accepting this moment right now. Usually it has something to do with my 2 dogs. And something they're doing, just being dogs. But if I can accept it, it just makes things better. And then I can start finding some gratitude in things too. Things that normally would have been just miserable for me. If I can accept the moment, now I'm starting to find a little gratitude. And my parents are getting older. I've spent some nights and days in the hospital with them, with accidents and things that they've had. And, you know, normally I'd be miserable sitting in the hospital. Even if I was there till 9 o'clock, I'm like, I gotta get out of here and get a drink. Not consciously, but unconsciously, I would have been like very irritable, restless. But now I'm just having a great conversation with my dad, helping him out, being of service, taking care of him. And I'm like, man, this is this is a bad time for everybody, but I can see some gratitude here. And I never could see that before. So I can start practicing it. So it's like learning the Tao is great, but the actions in AA that we take, the steps, seem to really help solidify some.
Make us aware of more of what's going on, right? It gets fear out of the way. And then when the fear starts diminishing, then we can see more clearly what's really happening.
Yeah, or just my character defects, which I'm still trying to figure out, find them. But I know when they're happening, but based on how I feel. And so whatever that is, may not just be fear, it just might be just like, you're right, I got fear of me not getting what I want right now.
Yeah. I think they all have a basis in fear if you look deeper. That's what I was referring to.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, so you started dipping your toe in the Tao, reading, found the podcast, then reached out, started coming to the podcast some, right?
Yeah, right away I realized I needed to shut up and listen more, so I stopped going.
And we started meeting, and you were unsure. I said, that's okay, don't worry about it. Let's just meet and see. And with time, we started working the steps. And with time, you started going, found a meeting. I suggested you go to a local meeting.
Yeah.
You did, and you found one you liked, and you were off from there. And Then you call. I remember the day you called me and said, it was like you were breaking up with me, that kind of thing. Buddy, I'm so sorry, but I think I found a sponsor, which is great. I told you should. I said, oh, that's fantastic. Oh, I'm so happy everything you did for me, but I feel so bad. I said, don't feel bad. That's what you're supposed to do. So it worked out great. I was just happy to be able to have participated in that journey. And if I wouldn't have been here, someone else would have been, because when we're ready, it says when the student's ready, the teacher appears, not when the student's ready, somebody might show up. The student draws the teacher. So if I wouldn't have been ready, there would have been someone else drawn in for you. It's my thinking. Yeah. The Tao's all about acceptance. So I want to say this, go back and look at the vinegar tasters. That story is all acceptance.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were tasting the vinegar, and when Lao Tzu tasted it, he was the only one that tasted it and smiled and said, it's vinegar. It's how it's supposed to taste. What are y'all so upset about? Acceptance. That was the actual story that started me on looking at Taoism. That story itself. When I saw the acceptance, I knew that lined up with what we learned in AA. So I knew those principles would be the same. And they've spoken to a lot of folks. Okay. So all of that's doing well. Since you've gotten into AA, as you've studied the Tao and all these things, has your view of a higher power continued to evolve? Does it continue to change for you? Or did it get to a point and stop? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think I'm at a point now where my higher power is all powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it looks like. All I can do is again see the manifestations of it, like it says in the first verse, and I'm good with that. I don't need to. What I like to understand. What it all is, sure, that'd be really cool. Maybe or maybe not. Maybe I don't need to know that. That's why you don't want to know this. Some small dude behind a curtain or something, just controlling everything. You'd be like disappointed. But I think once it's funny because I was reading We Agnostics, which is in the big book, and I was telling my sponsor, like, I'm good. I got. My higher power is undescribable and its power is unlimited, and I'm good. I don't need to know anymore. Do we need to keep reading this chapter? Do I got to go through this part? It's like, yeah, we got to keep reading it. But because I felt again super blessed because a lot of people seem to struggle with that phase of the program, and by going through, the Taoist part, and all the podcasts and learning and listening to you guys and participating in that, I didn't have that problem. It pretty much, it all in fact, it clicked in AA, which is funny, right? As I was first starting talking about it, I'm like, oh, like I can't understand this. And I don't need to.
Right.
And that's okay. But it's there. And that's why we talked about verse 14.
Let's read that.
Verse 14, just the very first part talks about it, right? It says, look, it cannot be seen, it is beyond form. Listen, it cannot be heard, it is beyond sound. Grasp, it cannot be held, it is intangible. These are the three indefinable. Therefore, they are joined in one. From above, it is not bright. From below, it is not dark. An unbroken thread beyond description. It returns to nothingness, the form of the formless, the image of the imageless. It is called indefinable and beyond imagination. Stand before it, and there is no beginning. Follow it, and there is no end. Stay with the ancient Tao. Move with the present, knowing the ancient beginning is the essence of Tao. So I
Move with the present. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I love the first part of that too, because it's there, even though you can't touch it, hear it, see it. It's just know that it's there in front of you, behind you, all around you. And that just, I don't know, that verse just gives me comfort if I ever were to start questioning it. It just says, yeah, it's there.
It said move with the present. Was the action it told us to take in that translation at the end?
It says, it says, there you go. I never saw that. Stand before it and there's no beginning. Follow it and there is no end. Stay with the ancient Tao. Move with the present. I never saw that before.
It's like to stand on what is already moving that I mention every week.
Stay or just be in the present moment.
Yes.
You're moving with, I think Wayne Dyer, I was reading chapter 14, his part just recently, and he was saying like, you're part of the unfolding of the process.
Mm. Yes. That's good. That's good. Any other verses that you would like to talk about, Keary?
Yeah. So just a couple other ones that I really like. I know they're all the earlier ones. I like 11, which is kind of short, but 11 is 30 spokes, share the wheels, hub. It is the thinner hull that makes it useful. Shape clay into a vessel. It is the space within that makes it useful. Cut doors and windows for a room. It is the holes which make it useful. Therefore, benefit comes from what is there, usefulness from what is not there.
Mm.
And I love that one too. And I don't know, I'm not a very experienced meditator in meditation, but I still do it, and I do it every morning.
Wait a minute, you've started meditating too?
Yeah, and praying.
What's happened to you? You are in Texas. You can pray in Texas, but I don't know about meditation in Texas. I don't know if that's, unless you're in Austin. Now, if you're in Austin, it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay there. Yeah. I was telling someone in a meeting the other day, I would never tell a grown man I was meditating when but now here I am. I'll do it for about 10 minutes every morning, and sometimes it's so good. Let's take it around again. Let's go. Let's keep it going. We'll just keep going. But it talks about verse 11 and the space between, and this might sound crazy, but like I find the most peace like when I'm breathing, if I can focus on my breathing, but especially the space between when I'm breathing in and breathing out and breathing in. There's like a moment there where it's empty, right? It's like you're not breathing in, you're not breathing out, but it's the same thing you talk about all the time with music, right? Like it's the space in between the notes that makes it into music. There's nothing there, but without it, that nothingness, there wouldn't be music because you wouldn't understand it.
I think that's surrender and powerlessness in recovery. That's how we become empty of self. Because unless we're empty, we can't be filled. So that's one way to look at that. As long as we're full of ourselves, how can, we can't be used.
Yeah. See, I have a lot of that. So maybe that's why I find so much peace in that moment, because it's like the one moment where I'm not focused on me.
It's a practice, Keary. This is all a practice. We're not earning gold stars here. This is about practice. The whole, we don't have to change our religious beliefs to benefit from the Tao. I still consider myself a Christian. If Christian means Christ-like, yes, for sure. So we don't have to, these principles work. Any perception of a higher power that is a loving God, these things would fit. These 81 verses. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Anything else? Did we leave anything out? I know we didn't get heavy in your story, but I think it was great. We didn't need to.
Yeah, I always, when I have to tell my story, I always have to add humor because it's not really that funny sometimes. Not a lot of shock and awe in my story, but I say when I used to listen to podcasts and you hear some of the most horrible things happening to people, you're like, now that's a story. I wish I had that story sometimes.
Well, you could, and you still could if you wanted to.
Yeah, I know. But then I think back, okay, no, you're blessed. Like, oh, you're good, Keary. Yeah, just get out of yourself. It's not about you. So that's my ego.
And what happens, Keary, is as you're sober longer, you talk less about the drunkalog and more about what's happening now, what life is like now. So no matter how bad your drunkalog is, it gets less and less as you start maturing and practicing this program.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Anything else you want to share? Do you have any podcasts you like now? You talked about the ones you had listened before.
Yeah, I listened to, I get them mixed up, Sobercast and Sober Speak, both of them.
Yes.
So Sobercast has a lot of, maybe I was going to say the same thing you were. Sobercast has a lot of speakers, and then Sober Speak is a guy here locally.
You got to support John M. You don't have a choice.
Yeah. That was cool. I was listening to one of his podcasts, driving down to a meeting in Frisco, Texas, where he's from. I needed to make up a meeting, so I had to go. And so I was driving down there. And
is this Keary I'm talking to? That does not make up a meeting. Come on.
And so I was listening to John M. on Sober Speak, and he was interviewing a guy, David G. That's part of the Frisco group. And this is just those weird things, right? Maybe just coincidence, but so driving down there, I'm like, I wonder if I'll meet John M. And then like when I get in there, I sit down, and then John's comes sit right next to me in the meeting, John. And I'm like, I was just listening to you. And then, and the first guy to speak up was David G. was across the room. I was like, okay, that's just cool. Something's speaking to me there. I don't know, and I didn't want to be there. And then I'm like, this is really cool. Like that happened. I'm glad I was here to just be the one person. Now you guys know, but like the one person just to think that was cool, that I was listening to these two guys and now I'm in a meeting listening to these two guys.
When I don't want to go to a meeting is the time that I need to, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So that's it. Just, man, the way the Tao was really my way. And I just find that's really cool. Looking backwards, my journey was on that pathway of the way.
And a lot of AA is in the same path. You can read the Tao all through the big book, 84, 85. We stop fighting anything and anyone. That's the Tao.
Yeah.
Place of neutrality. That's the Tao. It's finding your place, not through effort, but through emptiness, not through force, but through emptiness. And you lay aside self enough to where you can start noticing what is already moving and just step there. You don't have to make anything move. You just let go enough to where you can move in the direction of what's already happening. Such an easier way to live. And everything I know you've learned to practice this some in business too. I know we don't want to talk details, but I know because we've talked about it. Even back when we worked together, you were talking to do that. And I'm sure since then, you've learned more and more. And the 12th step talks about practicing this in all of our affairs. And that's where the real relief comes. Once we start feeling that relief in other areas of our life, like we felt the relief with alcohol. And it comes from doing the same thing. We surrender the business. We work the steps on whatever it is that's giving us the problem. And it works. It really does.
Yeah. That happened just yesterday. I had somebody that was doing stuff. Another coworker was trying to my immediate. It sounded like they were trying to undermine me, right? And normally I would just be really upset with fear and anger and want to get back at the person. And this is how was changing. It's like I didn't feel those feelings when it was being told to me. In fact, I even had a little bit of, maybe they think they're trying to be helpful, or it could be something else. And I would have never thought that. I would have just gone straight in and just, why are you messing with my stuff? You need to mind your own business, right? And
yeah,
and then I could see, and then I did start to feel a little bit like, oh, yeah, they shouldn't be doing that. And I was like, wait, that's my ego talking. My ego starting to, I could recognize it because my feelings, we talk about the frustration and that kind of stuff, and irritability. I was like, okay, that's probably my ego. I need to back off. And at the end of the day, maybe I should have done something about it. Maybe I shouldn't. I chose not to, because I was like, let me just sit with this and let the right answer happen. And moved over real easy. And the old me, that would have just escalated. A lot of back and forth conversations with myself and arguing and fighting over nothing. A lot of energy, a lot of wasted energy.
That's the thing. This is not about being passive. It's about being able to see things more as they really are. And then the serenity prayer works. We can see what can possibly be changed, and we can see the things we need to leave them. And I just sit with those things until I know the right answer. It's like letting the mud settle. Another Tao quote, can you let the mud settle long enough in the water so that the right answer appears by itself? Yeah. And that's what you're talking about, Keary. You didn't keep shifting the water around and not allowing it to settle down.
Yeah, just stir it up some more.
Stir it some more.
Or that person's probably in their own little world, not even worrying about it, but I'm over here just stewing in it, wasting all this energy instead of trying to fix the problem or let it go, whatever I need to do.
Usually when I react, I regret it. There's a Course in Miracles quote that I really like. Or maybe it's Course in Miracles. Defend yourself with compassion is the most powerful force in the universe. No, it's a Tao quote too. It's both, actually. They say it in both. Defend with compassion. And that's what you're talking about, is you're giving compassion when you're allowing someone else to have their opinion, and when you're taking into consideration why someone else is doing something, not just bullying your way through. That's compassion. Compassion is not ooey gooey. Compassion is not riding the person in front of you that you think's going too slow. It's maybe not taking the best parking place, leaving it for someone else. That's compassion. Picking up a piece of trash on the way into Walmart. That's compassion.
Yeah.
That helps me to have a better trip to Walmart, which I hate going. I have taken I get pissed off when I'm in the self-checkout because the bags won't open. And man, I'll just get fiery. And the lady came up and she was fussing at me. And I said, well, what choice do I have? She said, well, we do have a lane open that you can go in. I said, really? I said, and I went and waited and went out, let them check me out instead. And yesterday I had to go, and there was no one waiting. There were people self-checkout everywhere, but the one where you could get checked out for you, there was nobody there. I went right up and let her do the whole deal. I said, I've got to take other action because I'm just not mature enough to handle it. I think they should give me a discount for checking myself out. I should get at least 2-3% off for doing someone else's job. You got 2 or 3 Walmart people standing over there talking with their thumb up their butt, and they could be checking me out.
Yeah, that's that whole acceptance, right?
Yeah.
I was doing that today, buddy. I opened an IT ticket to load some software on my computer because I can't do it myself. I don't have permission. And I opened it 17 days ago, and I reached out to the help desk, and they said, someone will get back to you. No one got back to me. But already in my mind, I'm thinking, like, these people at the help desk, they outsourced it. I'm just adding all this other stuff to it, just getting madder and madder and madder, and like taking it out on some poor guy at the help desk. I've been sitting here for 17 days. It hasn't caused me any problems whatsoever, but I'm really mad. This is taking so long. I'm just like, who am I? Why am I doing that? It is what it is. Just
you notice my talking about Walmart, I was getting elevated the more I talked. I started to get out. Learn. I'm not capable yet to go through that process without it. So I just go and let them check me out, and it's okay. I don't have to do it. That's life, though. That's how we learn to live compassionately. It's just compassionate living is all it is. We learn how to do that in these little ways, and to the people we love, especially doing kind things that a lot of times they don't even see or don't even know we did. That's the ones that change me.
I'm sitting here thinking about, it's the character defects, right? Like that I need to start working on. And me thinking I know better than somebody else on how to run a business for Walmart. That's something I need to work on. I might be right or wrong, but I still need to work on that. And just
for me, I don't hope to work on things. I get enough things presented in my path that I don't need extra.
Yeah.
Just send me only what I need today, please. Nothing extra. I was in a line at Walmart again, and it was late at night, and there was only one line open just before the self-checkout. They only had one checkout line open. It's been a few years ago. And there were like 8 or 10 people in line, and the lady was super slow. And why don't they get another line going? And everybody was starting to get mad, right? You could just tell it was just crazy. And I turned around and I looked. I was about third in line. I said, okay, who here has been praying for patience? Because it's your fault we're having to wait. And they all started laughing, and everything was okay. I said, don't do that and come to Walmart.
Yeah, there you go. That's the serenity prayer, right? What you can do, what you can't control.
Yeah. The way we improve is by having situations that cause us to improve. That's what happens. If I want patience, I get lines to stand in that work patience in me. I'm not suddenly endowed with patience. It's worked out of me.
I think some of it, though, buddy, is what I've learned is we talk about the workbook of AA. Like when I did my 4-step and my 5th step, I kept focusing, even in my 4th column. So the 2nd column is like what that person did to me and why I resent them or mad at them. And then the 4th column was my part in it. And even my part was like, they did things that I resent, Yeah. And the 5th step, as I'm telling that to my sponsor, he's keeping me honest, right? He's, hey, focus back. You're still in column 2. You're focusing on what they did to you. What's your part? And I think that's not asking for patience. That's, in my mind, that was me getting practice. That was me going out to the driving range and actually hitting a few balls and trying to really focus on my part in things.
Right.
What could I control? And how did I F it up? And how could I do it better? And to see that. And the same thing now I'm doing my amends, right? I'm like, I wrote down my harms list. And again, I was struggling with writing an amend, like you did things that were wrong and I should have accepted a sick person better, right? No. What did you do? So I had to go rewrite it, keep practicing. I think that those are some of, like I talk about the workbook, some of the things I get out of it that like help me in those situations to, okay, what am I not accepting here? Well, now I see it. And what's my part in this? And gives me a little bit of help looking in the past so that I don't have to stand in that line. Or when I am in that line, I'm going to handle a lot better this time.
Yes. Now, it's just life. We get lines to stand in. It's just life. I used to think everything had some thing going on behind it, but it's just life. We get lines. Okay, that's life. On my 9th, when I was doing my 8th and 9th with my sponsor suggested that I start the amend with something I appreciated in the person. And he said that if you start it there, then the rest of it goes much smoother. And what I realized was that when I start with what I appreciate in that person, I'm moving the level of conversation up to a level of love because I'm starting with gratitude. And there's not a person I made an amend to that I couldn't find something I was grateful for. And I'd use that first and then go into my amend, and it worked fantastic. And now when somebody's aggravating me, it doesn't happen too often. But if I had a situation like that in the past, I would start finding ways to appreciate that person. And if I had the opportunity, I'd let them know what I appreciated in them. I did that a lot with my son, because there's a lot of things I did not agree with that he was doing, but there were some things good. And when there was something good, I would compliment him. That kind of, and so I use that a lot in situations and relationships with folks. Start that out with some appreciation, and it goes a long way.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I gotta go back and redo some of my 9 steps.
I don't know. Ask your sponsor. He might say no. He might say you need to do it different. But that's how I've learned. Anything else, Keary, before we close? Man, we've had a great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. I appreciate you having me on here. I was a little worried because I was like, I really don't know much, and it seems like all these other people know a lot more about the Tao than I do. But you were like, no, I want you to sign up.
It's experience, man. It's your experience with the Tao. It's not more than anyone else's or less. It just is.
Yeah, and I love it too. It still speaks to me, and I love going back to it. And so I really appreciate you having me on. Let me talk about it. I learned more today too, just by talking through it. And that's, as I share and do things, I learn more and more about myself. It's like more of that practice, I guess.
When we open our heart and we're available and do not approach things as if we know the correct answer already, that opens us up to see what is available to us and see what is already moving. We can't see that if we think we have it figured out. That's a lot of the Tao too.
Yeah, true. Definitely.
Thanks, my friend. I appreciate the conversation, and you have a great day.
All right. Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Hello, this is Buddy C. I wanted to make you aware of several recovery-related resources that I've posted in the episode description. These resources include a list of recovery podcasts, a free sober meditation app, daily recovery email, shared Google recovery calendars. Hope you put some of these resources to use and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends in recovery.